breed and raise our own crew. 3. Train them in isolation
to prepare them for life in space.
2. The voyage will take 86 years. 1.
We're the first generation. We won't ever see the planet.
Hi, Neil. How are you doing, sir?
I'm good, Howard. How are you?
I'm not too bad, thank you. Congratulations on the movie. It was fantastic. I watched it this morning and I loved it to bits.
How good.
I really love the kind of the blend of various elements. But I don't think I've ever seen a kind of a space film that merges kind of the Stanford experiment type element there. That was really good. I'm interested. Where did you get that combination idea from?
I had the idea independent of that. It was more just I had an idea. I had sort of this imagery of these young people in a spacecraft, kind of in a very cramped environment, sitting on the floor, still not talking, just kind of like almost like dead in this environment. And I just kind of teased that. I was like, who are these? It was an image that stuck with me. And I thought, well, who are these people? Why would there be young people on a spacecraft? And so then I kind of created this backstory of, who would go on a one-way, mission, and how would they get somebody for that? And so anyway, so I created that. And of course that, that Stanford experiment was, something that I had read about and that I looked into deeper. And in a way, it's interesting and it's informative, but it isn't an experiment what they're doing. They are sending them, it's all the idea is that it's supposed to be very utilitarian. They're not really testing them. They are, the program, the mission developers. They're just trying to figure out how to make it work.
You're not feeling what I'm feeling. What's going on? You're drugging us.
To prevent exactly this kind of thing from happening.
When I was watching Zach's role, the character feels terrifyingly timely, and the fact that he feels he's very, especially in amidst all this time of hate crimes and all these kind of things. Now, your character is kind of the fearmonger in the film. No, it must have been kind of very eye-opening, not just when you did the film, but now what with everything that's going on right now.
Yeah, definitely. I think that there's so many parts of Zach's character which are just very similar to any dictator or any, like you say, any person who's kind of trying to gain power through fear and through hate. And that's one of the things that drew me to the role so much, was that there were these incredible. Neil had written this amazing script, and the dialogue with Zach with these incredibly chilling sort of political speeches, where he's trying to win everyone over. So yeah.
Tye, this film is all about the shifting of balance of power now, and something that you did in another film not too long ago was the Stanford prison experiment. I imagine some of those elements you brought with you. Now, can you tell me what you brought with you and what you found what caught your attention with this script that made it different to that one?
Yeah, no, I think it's a really good question. There are definitely some similarities when it comes to the themes around the struggle for power, and I think that's something that's evident in all walks of life, in our society, and whether it be in a job place or your home or just or in government. It's something that I think we've constantly been trying to figure out for a long time, and I think that's one element of this film, that's makes it so human, and it really does, it explores it in an interesting way, because everything else is kind of stripped down. These characters are in the midst of space on this 90-year voyage to get to this far off distant planet, and they don't have anyone else except for themselves and these walls around them, and so the movie becomes really isolated on these characters, and it allows us to kind of get in and explore these themes. But yeah, no, some similarities to Stanford Prison Experiment for sure, and I always love these types of stories.
They're normal kids. I want to protect them. There's toxin in the water. Are we eating something toxic? It's the blue. I'm not drinking it.
It was interesting the change, the switch from the beginning of the film towards the end of the film, because you drink this blue beverage, which is kind of like the Kool-Aid in a way, not for you, and then you kind of turn into the Kool-Aid. that was kind of, it was a really, I really kind of appreciated that that kind of metamorphosis during the film. Did you see it kind of like that, that you were kind of the Kool-Aid that took over from the blue beverage without giving too much away?
Yeah, I know what you mean. It's like sort of starts out as yeah, as you know, they all want to get off the blue. They realize that they're being kind of kept numb and suppressed by this and being drugged. And yeah, and slowly over time, things start to go awry as Zach begins to try and sort of, yeah, I won't give too much away, but I think the one thing that I felt very clear to me in the writing from when I first read the script is that Zach was like a very damaged character, as I think is true with all characters who exhibit like a lot of anger and violence towards other people, is that it almost always comes from a place of pain and fear. And I think that Zach particularly felt a lot of fear and abandonment when he's a kid, and they sort of compress into these feelings of bitterness and uncertainty and resentment, you know. But really what he's looking for throughout the film is someone he can connect with and like some comfort. But he just has never been taught how to.
Sticking with the same theme of kind of balance of power for Lily Rose, I wanted to ask you, I mean, Tye's character and kind of Zach and Finn's character, they're kind of like the macho characters in this film. But at the same time, despite them being all territorial and masculine, would you agree with me that it's the female of the species on the ship, especially your character, are the more dominant and more kind of grounded characters in this film?
I mean, I think that's something that's, you know, explored in this film is you know, the true nature is not only of just like, you know, humanity as a whole. I think that's definitely a big theme, but also just like the true nature of each individual character. And I think that's something that we see really, you know, come out in my character is her innate kind of strength and leadership ability and this kind of like calm strength that she has. I think is a good way to describe something that is very kind of like innate in her. And I think that every character, you know, has their own way of displaying their strength and of displaying their desire and their kind of like fight for not only power and control, because I think that that's not, you know, necessarily the trajectory for every character, but I think that, yeah, each character has their own way to, you know, kind of show their strength and assert their, you know, dominance in whatever way that manifests for them.
Mm-hmm. I mean, something that's very important, especially now with everything that's going on in the real world, is everyone kind of needs allies, you know. I mean, everything that's going on. So, I mean, your relationship between both of your characters is a curious relationship, because out of all this turmoil is this kind of love relationship. That must have been quite interesting and quite a challenge for you to tackle, no? Because it's not something that we see every day in the movies.
There are a lot of things that make the film really dynamic, you know, that it's kind of this wild ride that just gets really crazy, really fast, unexpectedly. And it never it keeps escalating. It never slows up. But then there's also, you know, the space for these characters to have these intimate moments, you know, exploring these feelings that they're realizing for the first time, only, you know, as an 18 or 19-year-old. And so I think that was fun to play, and it also, you know, lets the movie breathe in a nice way, and I really enjoyed the dynamic.
Yeah, and I just to piggyback off of what Tye's saying, I think that it's also representative of the way in which we kind of like take refuge in those really special relationships when everything feels like it's so chaotic, you know, whether that's like a parallel with the year that we've just gone through and how kind of like chaotic everything has felt for us for a long time, or even just, you know, in a more general sense, when everything in your life feels kind of crazy and you know, I think it's in those moments that we lean on the people that we love the most, and maybe even in those moments that we realize, you know, who really is the most important to us and why they matter so much to us. And I think that that's, you know, true for Christopher and Selah as well. I think that they really find each other in that chaos and recognize a kind of mutual, you know, connection there.
Why have they all gone crazy?
Maybe they haven't. Deep down, Maybe this is our true nature.
The set's really intriguing. I mean, there's no kind of, we don't see anything gravity-wise. It's just you are in space, but there's no gravity. But it's really claustrophobic. What was the set like? Did it kind of help you to get into this character and feel kind of in this group that you were all rebelling against each other?
Definitely, yeah. It was very claustrophobic, and the kind of the backdrop of it all, the fact that it was all kind of sterile white floors and ceilings, it gave this very cold, kind of harsh impression. And you can sort of see how these kids who, with like when anything scares them, they've got no safety or comfort to go back on. So these feelings of fear just kind of keep going and like building up inside them because they've got no kind of safe space or anything that makes them feel kind of grounded and comforted and home. And the claustrophobic thing was very real. The sets were just completely incredible. It really blew my mind when I first saw them. And the ventilation was not the best in them. So once you were in them, we're in the middle of summer as well, in filming in Romania. So it was like 30 degrees most days. So it was definitely sometimes a struggle to try and stay awake when you're like not getting enough oxygen and overheating, and but it was all worth it.
I'm guessing it must have been complicated for you because obviously these kids that you send off to space, they've all been brought up in the same environment, no? But at the same time, it must have been, because of that reason, it must have been difficult for you to decide exactly how to kind of balance these two factions that end up kind of creating themselves on the ship. Now, how did you go about that? Because that can't have been an easy task.
Yeah, well, it was a challenge, obviously, creating, they've all sort of looked the same and they've been brought up the same, and creating a difference in them. And, so that we can kind of see the difference in them. But it's also in, it's like, well, so who are we at our core? Are we good, or are we, naturally good? Are we naturally evil? Or, and so it was interesting, like, to see who, they're all very smart, but who's susceptible to the arguments that Zach makes, and who resists that.
Mm-hmm. And then obviously watching the film, I couldn't help it. I mean, obviously this was made well before everything that's been going on now about with hate crime and all these kind of things, but all these factors of fear mongering that we see from a certain character that we won't mention right now, feels so relevant today. It was terrifyingly relevant when I was watching the film today. Yeah,
when I wrote it, I mean, I've always been interested in that way, in that, I wrote it more as a cautionary thing. Not that it didn't exist, when I wrote it a number of years ago, but now it feels very of the moment. And, I'm interested in that issue of, or that idea of fear, and how fear is used to, by people in power to manipulate their followers.
He can't protect you.
Protect us from what?
Let go!